I am resident of Hollywood for YouTube, joined by my buddy Butch Rosenbalm. We're here to discuss The Thing from Another World and John Carpenter's The Thing. So, I gotta ask you this. When did you first see the original Thing from Another World?
The one from the 50s or Carpenter's?
The one from the 50s, sorry.
I saw bits and pieces of it, but truthfully, I had never seen it all the way through until, like, I don't know, a few months ago. I saw it on Svengoolie, and I told my wife, I said, I'm really looking forward to this. I've always caught bits and pieces, and I saw it there, one Saturday night at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whatever time it was on today. And that's the first time I'd seen it. Of course, that was, this is 2022. Some future person is finding these videos and watching them. And I had seen The Thing in, like, I don't know, 84, 85. So, it's like, I know how this movie turns out.
What I find really strange is I feel the 1951 version I know it's had an impact on John Carpenter and the business in general, but I feel it should have had a little more of an impact because you and I know James Arness, who plays the creature from plays the Thing. In 4 years from 1951, he's going to go on to star in Gunsmoke, which becomes one of the biggest television westerns of all time. And
really one of the biggest shows of all time because it was really incredibly long running.
Yeah. And, I mean, there's nobody who doesn't know the name Marshall Dillon. Well, you and I do. We're Western fans, but we're not just horror fans. We're Western fans. But I think that's something I've always found most interesting when I first watched it. When I saw the name James Arness in the credits when I was a kid, I'm like, I looked at that. I turned around to my grandfather who introduced me to Westerns, and he started shaking his head like, yes, that's...
Yeah, I remember seeing probably one of those old Forey Ackerman famous Monsters of Filmland, and had the caption, James Arness is the Thing, and Bo was like, yes, Marshall Dillon. And at the time, I don't think I'd ever seen a complete episode of Gunsmoke. I knew what it was, and I was just like, I remember being a kid, and I think it was Saturday night when Gunsmoke come on. It was like, my dad's like, all right, we gotta go. You gotta be quiet. Gunsmoke's coming on. Yeah, same thing. I was like, he's a big star, not realizing as a kid this was before that, and people were like, who? He's just a big guy.
Yeah, it's really strange because, like, you see stuntmen now, like James Jude Courtney playing Michael Myers, and we know Kane Hodder plays Jason, but it makes you think, like, you don't really see stuntmen do what James Arness did. Like, he went from a creature to, like, a leading man to being in Gunsmoke, where you don't see that with Kane Hodder or any of the other Jasons either. And you don't see that with the Michael Myers either.
No.
You don't see that with George P. Wilbur. I mean, I think the most thing Nick Castle has done was he became a writer, and he wrote Major Payne and The Last Starfighter. But from a in front of the camera standpoint, I think this is sort of where, I'm not trying to get off topic, where Westerns need to make a comeback, because for these stuntmen to just be behind the mask or behind, makeup is almost criminal. Like, like, it's good to know them as monsters, great. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be, but that's where the Western sort of came into play, because here's James Arness. Yeah, he played the Thing, from Another World. He played the monster, but I know him from Gunsmoke too, and he's a hell of an actor. But he got that opportunity to do it,
Well, also, you might want to. Something that runs around in my mind is you looking back at Sir Christopher Lee before he hit big with Dracula and his various horror films. I mean, he was told several times, "You're too tall to be a leading man. You're too big. You're too tall." So I'm sure James Arness experienced some of that. Not everybody gets lucky like John Wayne and meets up with John Ford and gets this amazing starring role. And so for the bigger guys, that's, sometimes being a stuntman is where it's at, or somebody that doesn't have those, rugged good looks.
So this movie is actually set in the North Pole.
Mm-hmm.
John Carpenter's The Thing is centered in Antarctica, but I've always considered John Carpenter's The Thing a sequel to this movie. What do you think, Butch?
I can see that. That's not my personal. It could be the same creature. Potentially, they was coming in on Earth, and one dropped in the North Pole and one dropped at the South Pole or something. But I can see it. It just, I guess it's because it's the way, looking at the original, and James Arness is, as he was called a few times, a walking carrot, as opposed to this amorphous blob. And I say that with all the respect and admiration that you have for practical effects. In fact, actually, I'll take amorphous blob, just shape changing. Because amorphous blob, I think of like those 90s and 2000s CGI films where this dark cloud comes at you.
It really, with this though too, what I like about the original too is they actually have a person who's sympathetic to the creature, a doctor. I think that's one of the biggest differences between, and I know there's a good deal of difference between the original and the what's going to be called a remake, but because the dogs in the original, they get killed too, but they get killed sort of wrestling around with James Arness. He's sort of throwing them around. I love that scene where he's in the snow. And he's like, it looked like a wrestling match gone wrong.
Yeah. But is it? I don't know. It's not Child's. But when the doctor goes in and and the thing's chest open up and chops off his hands, there's no friendly after that. Yeah. Once you eat somebody's hands off, there's no making friends with that.
That's the one thing I liked about John Carpenter's Halloween. Halloween. The Thing.
It's so hard to not say John Carpenter's Halloween.
Listen, this podcast, ever since I started this channel, it's been full of goof ups. Nothing's changed ever since I started this. But it really, so John Carpenter's The Thing, what I like about it is they don't use a person who's sympathetic to the creature, where in the original you have a sympathetic doctor who's even sort of using the military to a point where he says, see, your own military told you not to destroy the creature, to preserve it. And so when you get into that compared to John's, there really is a different contrast of, hey, the military seems to want this thing alive, where in John Carpenter's The Thing, it becomes a matter of who do you trust?
Mm-hmm.
Because anybody could be the Thing.
Yeah. It's kind of funny you were talking about that they wanting it alive. It made me think of it was an Aliens where we have the android that is trying to get the alien back to Earth with a piece of it on the system.
Well, the alien. Sorry, go ahead. What were you saying? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
You're talking about the army wanting to capture the thing or keep it alive. Made me think of Aliens with when the android Bishop was trying to save the alien at the expense of all the humans.
Yeah, it's weird how like The Thing and Alien sort of go hand in hand in a way, where the one android Ash, who the science officer or doctor, what's weird about that is he replaces the original doctor, and Ripley actually brings it up in the movie where she goes, have you ever shipped out with this guy before? And he's like, not really, maybe a couple times. He goes, but it doesn't matter. Like he Dallas isn't making a big enough deal about it. in the movie, but I'll tell you where they do have it make a big deal of it if you've ever played the game. And I have. It's really good. I recommended this to Patrick, my buddy Patrick McRae. Alien Isolation. There's a recording of Dallas where he questions about he wants to report Ash. Like he feels it strange that the doctor got switched.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really weird that they do that in a game, but you don't really ever hear that in a movie where Dallas makes that point. With this, the Doctor in the original wanted to preserve the creature. He uses the military, and then I like how when they're in the room with the plants, it's like, oh shit! Now it's using the plants. Like
Mm-hmm.
the hell it for a movie like old school movies like this really are creepy. Like they're not. They may not be the next level scary that we get used to, maybe in the 70s and 80s or even in the 60s, really, but they have their own feel to them, like the original thing from Another World. What did you think of that? The inside the plants where they were. What did you
Yeah,
think?
yeah, that's one of those things. I think it kind of sneaks up on you, unintended, and you don't really realize where that's going, and then you're like, oh, yeah. And it's. I think it's. I don't. In my mind, it's always been kind of one of those things. You're maybe trying to sneak a little bit past the censor, or get a little more gritty or dirty or whatever you want to call it, but without actually, showing it. Because when the first time I ever saw George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, there's a scene where a head gets blown off with a shotgun, and I turned to my cousin and said, "You can't show that." And he laughs and goes, this is unrated." So when you're talking about the original thing, that's back in the time where you can't show that. But there's a lot of things that you can hint at, and then smarter people or more observant people will go, "Hey, wait a minute."
It's funny you say about unrated. I recently bought the original Cat People on Blu-ray, Val Luton's Cat People,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's unrated. And I was describing one of the scenes to my wife's best friend. I said, "There's these two women in this bar or restaurant, and they make eye contact, and they begin fighting, and it's cat fighting, and it's suggesting they're wild. In a sense, they're wild animals. They're cats."
Mm-hmm.
They literally, Val Luton is suggesting this in this movie, and it's really up to you, the audience, to determine, well, are they or aren't they? And it's really just masterfully done.
Yep.
So with the thing, they give you with the original, they give you a suggestion, but even with John Carpenter's, there's a lot of suggestiveness in that too, because what John does is where we I love how we see the dog running the dog running through the snow, and you got the team screaming something they can't understand. It's like
What are you saying?
they're saying shoot the dog, idiots. It's one of the most it's such a cool and intense scene, but it's funny at the same time where you're like, you can tell it's something with the dog,
Yeah.
and it's like, so when they're doing this, and then they put the dog's out amongst them, then the dog's in the cage, and it's like that dog was out for a while, and it was around a bunch of people, so it's like, oh no, this isn't good. John John Carpenter has something in store for us, and it's going to be crazy.
It's kind of like Alfred Hitchcock talking about you show the bomb in a suitcase, like under somebody's chair, and then you just show other people, going on, and you know that bomb's going to go off. You know something's going to happen, and it's just building that suspense masterfully, of course.
Yeah.
And like you said, you know something's going to happen, and it's probably not going to be good. But by the same token, it's okay. Like, okay, I've got to find out what's going to happen. Is it the dog? Is it somebody else?
Yeah. Who did you think the thing first sort of infected?
Every time I watch this damn film, I'll be like, okay, it's this guy, it's this guy, it's this guy, and then I'll watch it and I will completely change.
Mm.
So the only thing I am constant have kept constant is Kurt Russell is the only one that I will say does not get infected. Beyond that,
It's so hard because you see you see the shadow sitting up of a person, and then something happens to them, so
mhm.
you don't know who that person is. So one of the most things I found about this movie too is the guy that goes out in the snow and he's becoming the thing. I always thought that somehow they were going to come have that guy be alive, or
Mhm.
like there was gonna be another, he infected someone else, but he gets set on fire. But I love what they do with the dogs here. Instead of having them be wrestled around like they did in the original, here you see the other dog sort of whimpering and whining, and then the change begins to happen, and you're thinking, oh my god, how terrifying is this? And then you see it, and it's as terrifying as your imagination it lets is. What did you think?
Yeah, I'm a dog lover. Don't misunderstand. We don't, we don't hate cats or anything in this family. Just I'm a dog lover, and that scene that you're talking about, and you see the dogs are so obviously irritated and scared, and they're trying to get out. And there's one that's like biting on the cage door, and it's like, let us out, let us out, and just like, because especially if you've seen it before. But even then, something good's not gonna happen. And if you have seen it before, you're like, oh god, this is where we're just
It's really, I think that's the best thing about the separation between the two films, where you have this big boding monster in James Arness, and he's a physical being. And you do have a physical being in the thing with John Carpenter, but you never know who it is because it's trying to emulate the form
yeah,
perfectly, so perfectly that no one would notice the difference. Even I think they mentioned in the movie that they're trying to emulate it even on the molecular level, even where a blood test won't tell the difference. And I think that's some of the most really the one of the most terrifying things to me. And I want to get your thoughts on this too. To me, this here is John Carpenter's best movie, The Thing.
if it's not, it is definitely in the top three. He's at the top of his game. He's telling a story he wants to. For me, I think that's part of his thing about his toward the lower part of his excuse me, towards the end of his career. I think he was telling stories he didn't necessarily want to tell, or they weren't his stories.
Right.
But this one, oh man, just everything clicks. I've said for years, if not decades, that Kurt Russell and John Carpenter are my generation's John Ford and John Wayne.
Yep.
Of course, they're not making the same films, but when these two guys get together, it's like, here's my money.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think there's a flaw in this picture. I really don't. And the great thing, you're asking me about who did I think gets it first. That's one of the great things about it. A great film, you still talk about it later, or you still got, maybe you're still, okay, was it him? Was it Charles?
Yep.
Was it the doctor? I mean, was it Wilford Brimley with his diabetes? I mean, you you keep talking about it, you keep thinking about it, and that to me is a mark of a good film. Whereas, a lot of films nowadays, I know I'm older and I've seen a lot of films. I don't know how many times we'll watch a trailer or something. I'll look at my wife and I'll just go, "This has happened. That's going to happen. This is going to happen. That's going to happen." And basically, what I say happens. And it's like, well, why do I need to watch this film?
Right.
Good film like this, you can watch it You can watch it again, and you can watch it, and it's still entertaining.
Yeah.
One of my favorite examples of two similar scenes, done well and not done well. Charlton Heston in Ben-Hur, the chariot race.
Yep.
Even the first time you watch it, you know he's going to win, but it still draws you in.
Yeah.
Or for the younger kids, Luke Skywalker going down the Death Star trench.
Yep.
I think, other than maybe the first time I saw it because I was 6 or 7, I didn't know it, but everybody pretty knew he was going to make it. But it draws you in. Now, a bad scene is the pod race scene in Star Wars Episode 1. We all knew who was going to win, and nobody cared.
And
Oh my God, is this over with? Has he won yet? And to tie this back around, Carpenter, he makes such a good film, asks so many questions, and challenges you, and it makes you think. It's usually what they call fridge logic. You know, you go to the fridge and go, wait a minute. So, yeah.
I really do. I agree with you. To me, that's what makes a great film too. Like I've talked about before, how my favorite Western is Once Upon a Time in the West. Henry Fonda is my favorite actor, and throughout his career, Fonda was known for playing good guys. And when I first watched Once Upon a Time in the West, I seen Claudia Cardinal's name first. I seen Henry Fonda's name second. As soon as I seen Fonda's name, I'm like, oh, Fonda's playing the good guy in this. You know, no big deal. And then you see the Bain family get slaughtered like there's no tomorrow, especially for them. But here come these men out the brush, and the camera slowly turns, and it's like, that's Henry Fonda? Oh, shit.
And when he goes, that one guy goes, well, what are we going to do? I forget Henry Fonda's character's name, but he goes, what are we going to do, Bob? And he's like, saying, well, since you've used my name, we're going to have to kill him. And he just says it so matter-of-factly.
Yeah.
Like, I wish Henry Fonda had got to play more villains, because, I mean, he's just a stone cold killer.
I'll admit this. I'm horrible with this because I can quote this movie line by line. What do we do with this one, Frank? And he spits out some tobacco, and he said, "Now that you've called me by name," and he pulls out that gun and he cocks it. It's like, oh shit, you son of a bitch.
And that was the first time in my life, and I'd seen plenty of Henry Fonda films, but to me, I really noticed his eyes as being so blue, but they were just cold.
There's an interview with him in it where he's talking about that fact that when he was going to go do this film, Sergio Leone, Fonda came in disguise, like with a mustache, with contacts and stuff, and Sergio Leone was like, off. He wanted Henry Fonda's blue eyes. He was paying for Fonda's natural look.
Yep.
Because you're Henry Fonda. You've played good guys. And that's the thing with this movie. When you notice Keenan Wynn, Jack Elam, every person who's playing a villain has played a good guy up until that point in Westerns. So that's it's a really cool themed movie that's just pure fun. And then really Bronson hadn't done anything that big at that time. I mean, he'd done some stuff. He'd done the Great Escape, I believe, by that time, but he hadn't done Death Wish yet. That wouldn't come till later. And
Magnificent Seven yet?
Yeah, I think he had done Magnificent.
That was probably his big starring role or breakout role. That's the term I'm looking for.
Right, I agree. He had done Magnificent Seven by that time. But this here, he was playing the main character, the main protagonist of Harmonica, and he's a very mysterious character, and you don't know what his association with this guy Frank is, but he keeps asking for him, and then when you find out, it's all the more shocking. It's like, oh, there's history here. So, and I think that's Carpenter does the same thing with it. In a weird sense too, when you watch the interview, when you watch the special features for Once Upon a Time West, guess who's on there? John Carpenter.
John Carpenter loves his westerns, man.
Yep. And so I love how by the end of the difference between the ending of the original and the ending of the remake is in a sense the same message in a weird way, where the one guy's telling you to look out for the skies, watch the skies, watch the skies.
Watching the sky.
Yep. With in the end of John's, you see two guys, and both McCready and the other guy. Either guy could be the thing by this point. You don't know, and they're both, and you're just they're both chugging gasoline, and it's like when this movie goes black and ends, and really in craziness, it's just beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't really end. That's what I was thinking just as you said that. It doesn't really, it ends, but it doesn't end.
Right. It's just like you're waiting for what happens next. And it's like, wait, go back.
Yeah, don't stop there. Have you ever played the video game, The Thing?
I've never played it. I've heard mixed reviews about it, though.
I have it. I bought it years ago, secondhand, and there's two things I wanted to do. When I heard about it, I knew exactly what my strategy would be. Spoiler alert: the game doesn't like my strategy. But the first thing I want to do is I want to go find McCready and Charles and see which one was there.
Yeah.
And I believe Charles's body is still there. And you end up. I think McCready shows up as the pilot at the end. But my strategy in the game was I was like, you know what? Screw it. Kill everybody else. I know I'm not the thing. And now I'm sure nobody else is, And the game pop said, no, your party died. And I'm like, I'm alive.
Yeah. It's sort of like those role playing games where if you're it sounds like one of those role playing games like the old school. If your party dies, you're in deep shit anyway. And it's like with a game like that, it's like I don't give a shit about my party. One of my party members could be stabbing me in the back, literally.
And getting ready to absorb you. I wouldn't say eat you, but they're not really quote eating you.
I'll give you my biggest complaint about the Alien Isolation game, and it's this. I wish they would have. There's a scene where the Marshal Waits, who's a jackass, locks you in with the alien, and they just shoot you and it into space, but you're in like an airlock. You're like a pad thing, and you get back onto the ship, and it's like I wish they would have like. I usually don't bitch about more content, but here I will because I feel that the game was too long. But other than that, the game to me is the best Alien game because you can't kill the creature, you can't shoot it. Guns, if you make noise, it draws it to you. The thing's stuck. The AI is a little lazy, but other than that, it's a fun play along.
The only one I can remember playing, there was one on PlayStation 2, I think. I don't even remember what it was called. It was just kind of a generic Doom clone where you're going around shooting stuff. So I don't think I ever played that one.
Now, have you ever played House of the Dead?
I think I played one in an arcade, and it was one of those stand-up shoot 'em types.
Yeah. It's really interesting. With what the thing with the original thing too is there's a lot more. Like in John's, there's not a lot of survivors, and we're not even sure like if the survivors are still human. With the original, I do feel, and again, it's great that these two have differences, but I do feel they had enough. To me, it's like too many survivors. I wish they would have done a little more with the other characters getting killed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the captain's still alive, his girlfriend's still alive. Like have the two lovebirds still be alive. Just kill the reporter. You could have killed him.
Hey, let me ask you something. Something I thought of when I watched that on Svengoolie. Do you feel like it might be a metaphor? The alien itself might be a metaphor for communism and the fear of people that look like us but aren't like us coming into society in America?
I think it is. I think the original especially is.
Yeah, especially specifically the original.
Original
Sorry.
because this is a time when McCarthy is doing the hearings, I believe, or not too far from it. But it's keep in mind Walter B. Gibson, who was the creator of the Shadow, wrote about how the Shadow fought communism, and he was when Gibson was writing it, he was writing about communism in our country because it was taking place to him. So that's the thing. Like the movies we grew up with, like this. Well, I don't want to say grew up with because I wasn't born until the '80s. But the movies like this, when I watched The Thing, the original Thing, I had already learned about communism and what it was. So when you watch a movie like this, you're getting the message. And I remember our teacher showing us this, and I said, "This is about communism." And he said, "Really? Where did you learn that?" I said, "I learned that last year."
I learned it right after I watched Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
That's another one. I mean, the original Invasion of the Snatchers, because here's these people. They look like us, but they're not us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really strange how film is really trying to give you the message of, hey, this is an actual thing that's going on in our country.
And the fears and I should say hopes, but I don't think there's too many hopes in either one of those two films, Invasion of the Body Snatchers or the original Thing, about when it happened. It's it's people looking at things that look like anything, but things that look like us but aren't us and don't have our belief and whatnot. And it takes that to a degree. It's like the Twilight Zone, Rod Serling, and even the original Star Trek series, where you take these concepts and ideas, things that are going on, and you put a little sci-fi twist on them or fantasy. In the case of Twilight Zone, and you can talk about such things as Rod Serling said, and I love this quote, even though it was ridiculed at the time. A Martian can say things that an American can't.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's the thing too. Like he's right. Because, a Martian, if a Martian landed and started talking, they can get away with whatever. They're not their culture is not ours.
Right.
That's the thing. Like with the thing, with the original thing, it's a different culture. Even John Carpenter's The Thing, even more so than the original, was about literally a takeover of
Mm-hmm.
the human race, but not just. It's sort of, in a sense, giving the same message of the original, but in a more sinister way. Where I do feel John is sort of giving the message of communism a bit. I do feel they're both sort of giving the same message.
I would think, to me anyway, Carpenter's uh, ties in more with his version, his film They Live.
Yep.
I don't know how many you know it, but John Carpenter was not very fond of Ronald Reagan. And you talk about his version of John Carpenter's version of the thing being a takeover, and it's all you could. I won't say you can tie They Live into the thing, but you can see reoccurring themes in both of those films, and how these normal people meet. Here's that word again. Things that look like us, but kind of are like us, but kind of aren't. There's be it an alien shapeshifter that. Here's the thing. I've never thought Carpenter's thing was necessarily malevolent. It was just trying to live.
Yep.
Whether it meant to land here or not. I used to always joke that if you're familiar with the DC Comics character Martian Manhunter, he was actually the thing in the original film.
No.
And he learned enough to go become a superhero. Where in Carpenter's, it's like it's a shapeshifter and it doesn't know what it's doing here. It does, it's learning as it absorbs these people. And would it, is it necessarily malevolence to try and live? Because it needs substance. And I presume some of the reason that it absorbs people is to, one, be able to survive the place that it's at, and secondly, to learn, and there's third, substance.
Yeah, it really. I agree with you. It's more of like a, how do I put this? A message about communism as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and for people who don't know what we're talking about, go look up Senator McCarthy. Um, or, if you want to go read Blacklisted by History, that's another book I'd recommend. But here's a guy who started the McCarthy hearing because he believed the State Department was full of communists. And so there were the hearings. And so he was trying to say, hey, there's people that look like us but aren't Americans, that are presenting themselves as Americans that aren't. And so you have the thing, which is the original thing, which is giving that same message. And to me, a bit, They Live is too. But so, in a sense, I always get the sense John Carpenter's sin is doing it in a more, uh, you know, in a more sinister way, where here's this creature that's trying to look like us or look like anybody it takes the shape of, but not just to a physical appearance, to a downright molecular appearance as well, so it can fool any person it interacts with and kill that person.
I've kind of always wondered if, say that John Carpenter's thing was a little more sly or a little more successful, and let's say he takes over the whole camp, absorbs everybody, dogs, people. What happens after that?
Yeah.
Do they run and talk to each other? Do they eventually become separate entities, like like an amoeba, separating? I don't know if Carpenter's ever thought about it, because that's one of the annoying things about great films is you're like, you start thinking about things like this. Like, I had this long thought on George Romero's Zombies, and somebody asked him a very similar question. He's like, I don't know. It sounds good though. And I was just like, what?
Actually, John Carpenter's The Thing is actually going to go back in the theaters here soon, which is really cool.
Yes, that would be great.
But they've talked about doing a sequel to this movie, to John Carpenter's The Thing. Do you think it could be done?
Well, I guess technically they've already done a sequel. The other film we're going to talk about, the sequel that's a prequel that's a remake. But I get what you're saying. Then a follow up to the Carpenter Russell. I think if you're going to do that, tell your own story. Don't just we're in a, and I'm enjoying some of it. Don't get me wrong. We're in a big nostalgia thing right now, like the Spider-Man films and other shows and things that are coming in, and they're mining some if that Flash film ever comes out, it's got Michael Keaton returning as Batman, which yes, there's a nostalgia vibe going on. So if you hire me and Joel to come up with a film that is a sequel to this, first of all, it's going to be what, 40 something years after that.
Yeah.
We can refer to the Outpost or McReady or Childs or whoever, but personally, I would, if we did do that, I would like do it before the credits start or while the credits are going, and go to the film, the story that I want to film, because a lot of sequels nowadays, especially, seems like that they want to kind of just tell the same story, and I understand that. That's why you make a remake of a film, or you make a sequel of a film that didn't get a sequel when it came out. You've already got a built-in audience. You've already got fans, fan buzz, and excitement, and you've probably already got a fair amount of money already made, presuming this film comes out, of course. But I personally, I don't want to see the same film.
Right.
That was my biggest problem with the sequel, prequel, remake. The one that came out in, was it 2010? It was basically the same film. And I don't need to see it. If I want to watch that film, if I want to watch The Thing, I'll watch The Thing. If I want to watch Jaws, I'll watch Jaws. If I want to watch Godfather, I'll watch God. I don't need you to tell me the same story or the same story with just different actors doing the role. I want to see something different. Show me something different. And that's why another reason I think that Carpenter's film works so well. Yes, it is a remake. No, he's not really. He is telling the same story, but he's not telling the same story.
Yeah, I think that's the thing too with the prequel they make. It's like it just looks like the same film from the '80s with different actors, and I think that's the one thing people say too. Is like someone asked me, "Well, is it a remake of John Carpenter's?" And here's the problem too. I'll bring up a problem my buddy Daniel Culver brought up too that I think is an issue. The movie's called The Thing, and that's the issue too. With you have a prequel that's being labeled the same title as John Carpenter's The Thing, and it's like, where's your originality for your titles here? Like when John Carpenter remade The Thing, he didn't call it The Thing from Another World. He just called it The Thing. And so there's with these titles, it just feels like I give a great example. Like Halloween 2018 just being called Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
Like really? There's already a movie called Halloween.
There's a couple.
Yeah, there's more than one, and that's the thing. Like, I guess that's where it gets lost too. Like, there's remakes that just flat out suck. Like the remake of Psycho, for God's sakes. No, and if you want to watch it, and if you can watch it without wanting to jam a needle in your eye, God bless you.
You probably need it.
You may need the needle in your hand while you're watching it. That's what I'll say. But I just think there's a difference between being creative the way the Night of the Living Dead remake was creative. That was very creative. Whereas there's a difference between being creative like that and just being lazy like the Psycho remake. And when you be lazy with an audience, they're not going to appreciate it. I think that's the thing too. Like I've often said, like I don't mind someone remaking something, but you don't have to tell me the same exact story I've already heard.
Yeah.
Like I'm with you on that because my big thing with Psycho getting remade at the time it got made, I more feel that movie got remade because of the Scream movie. Because it got mentioned in that movie, and everybody, I honestly think, went because at the time there were still rental stores were still a thing. And I think everybody and their brother who didn't see that movie, didn't see the original Psycho, went to go rent the damn thing. And they said, hey, we're getting money from Psycho. Well, yes, you are, because it got mentioned in a very popular movie. And so people checked it out and said, you know what they said? Let's capitalize on this and remake the damn thing.
But also, I remember reading more than once that Gus Van Sant said the reason he wanted to remake it was Matt Damon had never watched Psycho and apparently wouldn't because it was in black and white. And I was like, please tell me that's. And then I read it like a couple more times. And maybe in a case of someone just repeating the same lie, I really wish it was because anybody, especially someone that's an actor, that won't watch a film because it's in black and white. I understand not caring for black and white, especially the vast majority of black and white films. Black and white doesn't do a whole lot for. It's when you get to Night of the Living Dead or Psycho or film noir like Double Indemnity. Black and white helps it. It tells the story. It does something. But if you're just not going to watch a film because it's in black and white, I think you need to grow up personally and realize that some of the greatest films of all time are in black and white, and there's no need to colorize them. I'm right off the top of my head. I'm thinking of Citizen Kane and Casablanca. Neither one of those films needs to be colorized. And if you won't watch it because it's black and white, man, you're missing two great films.
I literally just purchased not too long ago The Big Sleep and Key Largo. They're both in black and white, and they're both beautiful films. I think the biggest problem with actors who don't want to watch something in black and white is because they don't appreciate the nostalgia and the art, the story black and white tells. The black and white is part of the story of most films that you watch, where, like, when Cat People was remade in the 80s, I believe it was the 80s, I could be wrong, but
around 1980.
Yeah, when Cat People was remade, there's a real difference between the original and the remake, where the black and white of the original is telling you the story of not just the color of the film, but the people in it. And it causes you to pay attention to those people. And I do think that's the thing too. Like, older films give you the appreciation factor where you're watching, whether it's my favorite Bogart film is The Maltese Falcon. So it's really just a great film to watch because it's telling you a story. And that's the problem. Nobody wants to go back and watch these older films. Oh, they're in black and white. Well, guess what? Some of these films are never going to be remade.
Some of them shouldn't be remade.
Yeah.
When my wife and I first started dating, I don't remember what we first watched, but might have been Key Largo. My wife had never seen a Humphrey Bogart film, and she watched it and she really liked it. And I'll never forget, she turns to me one night and she looks and she goes, "Can we watch another Bogey film?"
Yeah.
I started thinking, okay, I've got I don't know, I probably got about 10 Humphrey Bogart films. And I saved Big Sleep for last because that's my favorite. I can watch Big Sleep over and over. I can watch them all, but
Right.
that's my favorite. And I would tell her a little bit about it. We got to High Sierra, and I'm like, hey, this was his big starring role. This was his big break, and here's Maltese Falcon. And I said, okay. I said, I've been saving this one. This is The Big Sleep. I said, let me tell you something. I said, love this film. I said, I can't tell you a damn thing that happens into it because it makes no sense. But when you watch it, you don't care because it's told so well and it's told so interestingly. I'm still not sure who kills who, and I don't care. And I've watched that film 20 times, I know. And yeah, like you said, the black and white it's like a great steak or a good meal, or I don't smoke, but I've heard people talk about cigars or fine wine, and you just I'm going to drink this kind of slow. Oh yeah, this is so good, and just sit there and enjoy it.
I love when Bogart meets the guy's henchman for the second time, and he puts up his arms, and they're like, "Oh, stop it!"
I think my favorite line in that whole film, and there's some great ones, is when he towards the end when he's trying to get Lauren Bacall to untie him, he's like talking about the big guy Camino, and he's like, he's the kind of guy that would kick my teeth out and then beat me up for mumbling.
Yep. Bogart just was always on. I mean, there's not a. I'll tell you, when The Petrified Forest is really good, when he's just, and really he played the role on stage.
Yep.
And like, even when he's in that, and it's just a movie you gotta watch, and it's.
I don't want to go off on bogey here, but have you ever watched Treasure of Sierra Madre?
Yes. I want to say it's I want to say Walter or Sam Houston doing the dance.
The Walter Houston.
It's you really get the sense of what treasure can do to people and what greed can do to somebody. And Bogart really plays that in between so well. I mean, to me, I know he should have won an Oscar for that performance.
Yeah, Fred Dobbs is probably, in my opinion, if it's not his best acting job, it's definitely right up there. Maybe Queeg from Caine Mutiny. That's another really good performance he puts out. But anyway, we're getting sidetracked. As always.
It's fine. I let this podcast get sidetracked all the time. As a host, I take full responsibility for us just rambling. No, it just gives real quick. They sort of give a. It just lets you know how great those older films are, and they're just great to watch. I mean, they're well performed. I mean, Bogart's the man, Fonda, Wayne, Gregory Peck. The list goes on of classic films because these actors knew how to sell their ass off.
And they knew how to act.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not overly fond of Tom Cruise, okay? Tom Cruise can be a really good actor.
Yeah.
As our mutual friend Patrick McRae pointed out to me one time, his best jobs are when he's playing against type, like in Magnolia, or I can't think of the film where he's the hitman and he's hired Jamie Foxx to drive him around.
I know what you're talking about.
Born on the 4th of July. There are movies of his I like, but most of them I can't stand because he's one of those guys. He can act, but sometimes I just want him to. No, we want you to play Tom Cruise. And it's like, here's the thing. Every time I see Tom Cruise playing Tom Cruise, it just reminds me I'm watching a film. Humphrey Bogart or Gregory Peck or well, I mean, there's newer guys. Don't get me wrong. Jeffrey Rush jumps to mind. There's plenty more if I wasn't trying to think of it. But some guys get stuck playing what I call playing themselves. John Wayne, Jack Nicholson, Dennis Hopper, Tom Cruise, and I'd say John Wayne actually can be a good actor. If you've ever watched
The Searchers,
the one with Searchers, yes, what you're gonna say, and also The Shootist.
yes.
If you've never seen The Shootist, that's a very underappreciated. We all know Jack Nicholson's a great actor. We all know Henry Fonda's a great actor. Sorry, I don't know why I through him. He's not really known for playing himself. Tom Cruise can be a great actor. I just, you get this name and okay, we know he's going to come into this, and this, and we'll have a tagline. It's kind of like Will Smith. Taking away his most recent adventure. For the most part, like when he did Men in Black and Independence Day, I was okay with all that. But it got to where that was all, he's kind of the smart alecky, cocky guy, and he's going to have a couple of cocky, smart aleck, heroic lines, and it's just like, I don't need to see this again. Excuse me, I don't need to see that again. So, let these guys act and stop going for just the cheap. Sure, everybody's expecting it, and I understand you want to give your audience at least some of what they're expecting because that's what makes them buy tickets and see it and see it again and tell their friends. But by the same token, if it's just basically the same characters in slightly different situations, I don't need to see that.
I'll give a great example. I agree with you. Will Smith can act, but the thing of it is, if you keep playing roles to where you're not playing the character, you're playing you. You're not, you're not acting. I wouldn't mind Paramount remaking Once Upon a Time in the West. And then when you have a family get massacred, and it turns, have it be Will Smith, and have him be a cold-blooded son of a bitch. And
no smiles, no funny jokes, no lines.
Just where it's like, the reaction I gave Fonda, you mother. give me that same reaction. Make
Yes.
me say those words to the point of, I hate your character's guts. When you meet Fonda's Frank, in 5 minutes you want him dead. That's the
Waiting
thing.
for it the whole film.
Yep. That's the feeling you should like if Will Smith were to play a modern day version of Frank and he makes you feel that way, then he's done his job. That's something I'm not trying to speak for you. That's something we would like to see,
Oh yeah. Oh no, I would. I mean, what was it 7 ounces, and the one where he's a father and he's homeless. Like that time he's hiding in the bathroom so his son can sleep because he doesn't know where to put him. Yeah, Will Smith can act. He can
Yep.
act his ass off.
Yep.
And there's a scene you can find it pretty easy on YouTube. Back when he was on Fresh Prince from Bel Air, and his character's father comes, and then of course abandons him again, and he's like talking to the uncle, the older guy, and he's like, "Oh, that's all right. We'll catch it on the next time." And he just slowly breaks down into the uncle's arms, and he's like, "Why don't he want me, man? Why don't he want me?"
Yep.
And even watching that out of sequence, as long as you have some sort of idea of what's going on, depends on where it works. And it's just like, wow. For a silly 30-minute, well, 22-minute family sitcom, that's a gut punch right there.
Like, I'll give a great example. Like when he redid once Wild Wild West, I thought, okay, have it where he's getting the inventions, and he's like, will this work? Like, are you like have him question whether the invention will work? Because there was comedy in the original series,
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like where there's there are westerns where there is comedy, but if you're playing it to where it's just pure comedy and the drama is so over the top, it doesn't work all the time. And I think
No, there's nowhere for you to take your breath, so to speak.
right, there's got to be those moments where there's the perfect blend of comedy and drama. Again, I'll go back to my favorite western. Jason Roberts plays Cheyenne. He's serious, but he's funny at the same time. I love the line Claudia. He tells Claudia Cardinal. He goes, Joe, you remind me of my mother. She was the biggest whore in Alameda and the finest woman that ever lived. And I almost roll at that point.
And that scene towards the end where she's like, "What do I do?" And he's like, "Go out them and show them, what they're doing this for." And
Yeah.
I know I got the line wrong, but yeah. And since you've mentioned yours, and if anyone's interested, my favorite western of all time is The Wild Bunch, Sam Peckinpah.
It's I think Ernest Borgnine and God.
William Holden.
Yes, William, hold on, I'm sorry. Really great chemistry. We talked about that a bit before. They really give a great performance. And I like the fact too that when they do the flashback scenes with that one guy and they show why he's going after his old gang, you really get the revenge factor in the film. It's a fun, for those who haven't seen The Wild Bunch, go watch it. It's really a great film. Butch is right. And yes, we've gotten off topic, but that doesn't matter because I'm the host, okay? I can say it's okay. But
Let's quickly have a little quick discussion about this sequel that was the sequel that was a prequel that was a remake. And because I'll be honest with you, Joe, when you asked me, I was like, I need to pull up the Wikipedia page and read it because it's been at least 5 years since I saw it, and I don't own it, and I remember thinking, it was just lacking. And I'm reading the page, and I'm reading it, I'm like, even reading the page, I'm like, yeah, it's just lacking. It's not bad. I think for a sequel, that's a great idea. What happened in the Norwegian camp?
yeah,
And basically the same thing happened, and it was a woman playing McReady, and it's like, okay, I was just underwhelmed with something that I felt like started out with a great idea, a great concept, and talking about our hypothetical sequel to the thing, and maybe for whatever reason, the base was destroyed, and for the first time in 40 years, they're coming back. I tell you what I'll do. Once we get to the camp, right away we find McGrady and Childs' body.
Yeah.
Because that's the if you're making a sequel to the thing, what does everybody want to know? Which one of them was the thing?
Yep.
And then go on and tell another story.
Yeah. Here's my problem with the prequel that they did. It's about the Norwegian camp, right? Here's the problem. There's only one Norwegian, and they should have all been Norwegian, Butch. All of them, every goddamn one of them.
I do D&D every other Thursday night, and we did it last night, and I was telling them what we were going to talk about, and one of our players said, for a camp of Norwegians, I think only one of them spoke Norwegian. And he said, and I think it's dead on. It's because for the most part, Americans don't like to read subtitles.
I do.
I do too. I don't want to read them in every film, but
right.
I tell you what I like to do is like put in The Killer or Hard Boiled with Chow Yun-Fat, put on the dub and the subtitles, and see how the translations differ. But coming back to my point, for a quote action flick, suspense flick, horror flick, whatever you want to, D all the above, I don't think that the average person is going to want to read that many subtitles. And I think he's, and I'm saying the average person, I think he was spot on with that. I understand it, but I felt like there should have been, or at the very least, the woman and her friend that get her to come over there, they're saying something in American English, and then these other hero I can't do Norwegian, but what do you say? Oh, it's fine. Just throw that in every now and then. Just we're in the Norwegian camp.
I think here's the thing, and I do agree with your friend, what your friend said too, that not everyone wants to read the subtitles. But the thing about the older films we were talking about is part of its patience. And that's the thing too with the subtitles is the same thing. If you're going to make a movie, a prequel to the thing about the Norwegian camp, then God damn it, cast Norwegians and put the subtitles on. Because here's the thing too, where I don't look, Kurt Russell is great in the thing, but when you hear Kurt Russell in the thing, you don't mind the fact that Kurt Russell though he is a Hollywood star, he's never felt Hollywood.
Yeah.
He's sort of been that anti-Hollywood hero that we've all loved. So, but when you have people who are from television who you see, and it's like that guy's an actor, we've sort of talked about this in other films. That guy's an actor. It's like that's a part of the problem too. And plus, you only cast one guy who speaks Norwegian. It's like, look, if you make this movie in Norwegian about a bunch of Norwegians, I'm there. I'm there with bells on. I'm there with just my socks on. It's just. Yeah, I'll be okay. I may not be wearing pants for this podcast, but it's okay.
One thing I thought that they could have done is come in, speak Norwegian, and do that kind of thing where you're reading the subtitles and like the camera shifts, and suddenly they're all speaking English, so that we don't have to, if you don't want to do that, and then as they're starting to leave the camp, you do the same kind of shift, and they're back out speaking Norwegian. And I would have, and I believe it does. It ends basically with, I guess you probably can't show Kurt Russell, but show them going towards the camp. And your last scene matches up. Now, I will agree, and I noticed this when I watched the sequel. They tried hard to match up everything that they saw in Carpenter. And I really, I don't want to sound like I'm bashing these folks. I think, like I said, I think it started out with a great idea. And, like any film, when, Carpenter's films, he had to compromise. He couldn't always show what he wanted to show. So, turned into what we got, which I have seen much, much worse films.
Yeah.
But for something, for you, that's the problem when you take on these big films. And you want to make You can't just. It's like you can't have a movie about Superman flying around getting cats out of trees and catching balloons. If you're going to make a movie, but you got to tell a story worthy of this movie. Now, a good writer and a good director could tell a great story about Superman saving cats and catching balloons.
Yeah.
But those kind of people are far and few between, and you have to wonder, well, how well is this going to sell? How much money is this going to make?
Yeah. I think that's the thing too. Like when I'll use Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ for example. When Mel Gibson literally said, I'm gonna literally go to the country, have it in Aramaic," everyone said, "Dude, you're crazy." That movie made a lot of money because he did everything the right way. Because he had it in Aramaic. He casted people who looked like, you know, it's like that's the thing. If you trust your audience to be smart enough to fault that they're going to be smart enough to follow along with a movie like this in Norwegian, they'll probably be there and watch this movie and say, "Hey, wait a second, this is the Norwegian camp they talked about in John Carpenter's The Thing." And then you're watching things go bad. Don't have a McCready type character, just have them not understand what the hell they found.
Just like McCready didn't.
Right, right. McCready didn't understand it either. Here's the thing, no one should understand it. It's a goddamn alien.
You know, one thing about Passion of the Christ, and I agree with what you say, but also that is such a well-known story.
Yeah.
You don't need it to be in English. You know what's going to happen. And I will tell you, the chick that played Satan in the Passion of the Christ, man, she was creepy. That you just I know you got the lighting and the sound and whatnot, but man, you knew right away that you don't want to mess with this chick. And so yeah, but I also wonder if that's why I don't know if it was his next film, but Apocalypto comes in mind, and it's all in Mayan or Olmec, I forget which. And I tried to watch it, and it was just like I don't know this story well enough, like I do Passion of the Christ. I'm the son of a Baptist preacher. Do you think I not know? I don't know about the Passion of the Christ. Do I know about this Mayan runaway trying to get away from people that are going to sacrifice him to Quetzalcoatl? No, I don't know this fella.
Right.
So I think you may have to balance it a little bit and tell that either if you're making a film in a different country, that's one thing. If you're making a film in an English speaking country where nobody in the film speaks English, you do have to have a few hooks to bring everybody in, or to even just go, to let them kind of turn their brain off from me. Oh yeah, okay, this guy's just running. He's going to build him some shelter, catch him some food, whatever. Even if it's just a silly scene, it's something that they can to join in with and become part of it, rather than just going, yeah, I'm watching the film.
Yeah. If they do this sequel to The Thing, I agree with you. Like, show the bodies of McCready, or they say they found two bodies frozen, just like they found a frozen. And in the original, where in the original they find a frozen, creature, but this they find two frozen bodies, and you don't know which frozen body the creature came out of, whether it was McCready or the other guy, and leave it like that.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
then tell your story.
Yep, exactly. Then tell the story of, hey, wait a minute, there's something going on here. You know, that's again, it's not hard to do this story to follow John Carpenter's The Thing, but could Hollywood overcomplicate it and overcomplicate it? Yes, yes, they could.
Oh yeah, we know that well. And it's like sometimes they try to recreate the wheel at times. It's like you've already got a good setup. You've got a name. Everybody already knows what you're doing. Everybody knows what the film you're going to do. Now that doesn't mean you can't turn those expectations on their head or at a 90-degree angle, but You got the buzz. You got no. You don't have to get it out there. You just go, yeah, we're doing a sequel to John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yeah.
There you go.
I was saying this to a friend of mine that I said Universal keeps making all these shark movies, and I really think they're wanting to remake Jaws, but they're too scared to. And that's why you're seeing all these shark movies like The Meg, and and really some of these movies they're wasting good stories on, where they could do a good Jaws story out of these. And it's like I told my one friend, I said, first of all, if you're gonna have a Jaws story, don't set it on Amity
Yeah.
Island. Send it center it on an actual island, and then someone comes home looking for a family member who's went missing. The island's large, so they do something like that. Do it differently. You don't want to do the same exact thing, because we all know how that turned out for Psycho.
But the power makers and the deal makers in Hollywood, they want to, because that's guaranteed money, and they don't want to risk their money. So
Yeah.
I mean, we are unfortunately past the age of the John Carpenters and the George Romeros, Wes Cravens, and all the other Tobe Hoopers and all the others that were willing to take chances and tell the story they wanted to tell. And I'm sure you know about the how George Romero's Day of the Dead was going to be a completely different film, but he couldn't get the money for it. So, like, in a month, he rewrote it, and he wrote the film that we got filmed. So these guys that still were willing to try to tell the story they wanted to tell, and with the constraints they had, whereas now it's just like, yeah, hey, let's remake T.J. Hooker, or let's remake,
Right.
whatever else, and it'll keep happening until people stop going to see these films.
That's the thing. Like, when you and I did the Texas Chainsaw Massacre review, the movie's not bad.
No,
It's just I do think there are filmmakers who want to make a good movie and a good story. But again, look, we love the old killers, the old horror, whether it be Luton, Hitchcock, Carpenter. But those guys already made those movies. Make your own. Create your own character. You know, that's something too. Those filmmakers we all idolize. You know why we idolize them? They weren't afraid to take risk, and that's why look, Hollywood. They would all tell those people, hey, you can't do that. Well, guess what? Those directors are legends because they proved the system wrong. You know, and that's the thing. That's how you become legendary. Prove the system wrong by making a new product that's going to be successful.
George Romero said, at least in one interview, and it has stayed in my head in the decades since then, that the pioneer is the guy with the arrows in his back. So, I understand you got to make a deal, and you've got to make compromises and whatnot. But these guys were able to make that compromise and still tell a good story, and not show you just the same thing. Whereas, it's like the later Halloween sequels with Donald Pleasance. I saw and own every one of them. You know why? Because I like Donald Pleasance.
Yeah.
But same damn film.
Yeah.
And I think we're still kind of in that mentality, or the executives and decision makers are, and it's like, no, we don't want to do something too crazy. That might upset the fans.
Yeah.
I wish John Carpenter had made Halloween 3, I don't know, 2010. And I say that because he could get, or if he changed the title to Tales of Halloween.
Yeah.
Because, he was trying to do something different, but everybody's, it says Halloween. Where's Michael Myers?
Yeah.
That expectation.
Right. we talked about that a bit. And here's what I'll say. I'll play devil's advocate. But you, with that, when I first watched Season of the Witch, Halloween 3, I get why you say that because that can confuse people. But for me, when I watch the film, and I think there's a lot of people who are just now doing this, honestly, when they see Michael Myers as a fictional character in the movie is telling you right away what it isn't. Hey, here's Michael Myers. He's a fictional character in the story. He doesn't exist. Here's what's going on. And I think that's what Season of the Witch doesn't get enough credit for. It is telling you it's its own thing. Yes, it's called Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Deal with it, people. Deal with it.
But nobody dealt with it. That's the problem. I don't know how well the word got out. I knew the word because I was reading Fangoria at the time. The average person was like, "Oh, let's go see the Michael Myers flick, Halloween." Where's Michael Myers? What's this crap? He's on TV. What? And that's one of the reasons I said I wish he could have done it now, because with social media and 20 million thousand news and entertainment channels, the word would get out pretty quick. This is not a Michael Myers film, and I think you would do away with that. Where's Michael Myers? He's not there. But call it Season of the Witch, Tales of Halloween, whatever. And I think sad thing is I think honestly, if you just change the name, it would have had a different life. But it's finally getting some respect and some love, and I'm glad to see all the people that are discovering it. There's a Halloween 3 Season of the Witch Appreciation Society on Facebook, which I'm a member of. I love it when there's a new person coming in. Hey, this is a good film, or somebody our age or my age or your age, whatever. I just, I didn't give this a fair shot when I was a kid. And man, this film's great, and Tom Atkins is great, and I really enjoy it. And yeah, that's what I like to hear.
Yeah. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out and buy a dartboard. I'm going to put a picture of Michael Myers on the dartboard, and I'm just all the people who hate Season of the Witch. Well, motherfucker, I hate Michael Myers. See, just bam, bam. I'll probably miss the board a bit because I haven't thrown darts in years, but still.
That makes me think of a joke I heard recently. If everybody gets upset, you can switch this around, wife or husband. But the version I heard was a wife asks her husband, yells at him, goes, "Hey, do you ever have a piercing pain in your chest like somebody stabbing a voodoo doll of you?" The husband goes, "No, why?" A couple seconds later, the wife hollers back and goes, "How about now?" It's a good joke. It really is. I wanted to. I was thinking I wish I'd had a hat and some sunglasses like McGrady, and I wouldn't have trimmed my beard recently. I would have loved to have come in and have the hat and the glasses and the drink and his coat. I'm sitting here and and of course what's going on and you play along. I'm just sitting here, cheating bastard. A cheating bitch, I think is what it is, because it's Adrienne Barbeau's voice. But
before we go, let me apologize to Butch for the vacuum cleaner sounds.
I don't know if you've heard the puppy running around here and barking a little bit. So
I saw the puppy on the couch. I was like, "Oh, doggy!" But he was there. I swear, I saw him.
Right over there. She's licking her front paw. She's good.
Me and my wife were actually puppy sitting for my sister-in-law here not too long ago. But it's always fun to, have fun with the kids and the dogs, right? So, first of all, to my buddy Butch Rosenbalm, thank you, my friend, for joining me on this podcast. I had a blast, dude. We do have to get on here and discuss some Westerns for sure.
We do. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. It's always fun. I appreciate it also when you give me a little bit of heads up so I can, if it's been a while since I've seen a film, I can look it up a little bit. That film with that guy that does that thing? But I appreciate it. Quick shout out to all the fathers out there. Happy
Yep.
Father's Day. A little late, but happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. And anybody else that's a parent, I doff my cap.
Yeah, to all the dads out there, happy Father's Day. To all, and yes, it is late. Happy Mother's Day, belated Mother's Day to all the awesome moms out there. Because
Should have done Psycho on Mother's Day weekend.
we should have, we should have.
One last thing. The ringtone I have for my mom is the Psycho. Scream, 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 scream. And I've tried to find like a wave format of him going, "Oh God, Mother, no!" to put at the end of that. And me and my wife were at Walmart, and my phone goes off, and the cashier's like, she recognizes it, and I'm, hey, what's up? And I hear my wife tell her, "Oh, that's his mother," and the cashier starts laughing so hard. It's like, one of us, one of us.
Yes. For years on my old cell phone, I had from the Quest from the Holy Grail, message for you, sir, when the arrow shot it. And my brother's like, what the fuck is that, when he was alive? And I told him what it was. I said, you gotta go watch that movie. He's like, okay. And he watched it. He goes, you're a sick son of a bitch. I was like, see, it's a good movie. Now I got the Darth Vader breathing. I was like, I got to get a new message said, but still.
Have you watched Kenobi?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. I don't want to spoil for anybody.
We're gonna have to get you and Patrick on to do that one, because I
Okay.
want to do that with both you guys. But for Butch Rosenbaum, it is always a pleasure to bring this gentleman on. He is very cool. Go check him out on Facebook. I'm President Colwood. Butch Rosenbaum, man, thank you and have a good night, man.
You as well. Live long and prosper as always.
Bye bye.
See you guys and gals.